So we're jumping into yet again more of the Beast Wars again premium finish line from Takara-Tomy. This line is absolutely fantastic, and we talked about early this week a super blurry image of the next release, the BWVS-06 Ferocious Battle Dinobot versus Tarans, aka Tarantulas as he's known here in the West. And this was a set that's an homage to that old Beast Wars 1997 2-pack from Japan. And it continues here today with a set that has an insane amount of paint added to it. This one is absolutely incredible and probably is going to be the MVP of this entire line. A little bit weaker on the other side of it, but we'll get into that in a moment. So let's jump into it here on the Transformers Slag podcast and break down what's happening here. And, you know, when we got that old masterpiece version of Dinobot, it was just absolutely incredible. And now we have a mini masterpiece here with this one. We're going to jump through it both with the alt mode and the robot mode. We'll start with Dinobot first. Really cool stuff here. So when you look at that Dino mode and compare it to the mold that it came from, the Kingdom version that we had before, that Voyager class, you could see just how much paint was changed and added to this, the amount of budget. It's crazy. It's so much more than we expected even. I mean, you look at right away, they changed up the pattern and the tan color to really match the animation model. And it's fantastic what they did. It's so crazy and transfers so much over when you get into that of the alt mode, to the robot mode, excuse me. But I think that it's nuts how well they did it. There is some minor quibbles I have. I mean, and it is, you know, a blessing in disguise, but also a curse in a lot of ways, in that a lot of the paint that was done for the robot mode and was added to it, which due to the lack of budget that the retail version had with Kingdom, because there's so much paint on the robot mode, some of that bleeds over into the alt mode here and kind of shows through. If you look at the old Kingdom version, on the back of his rump and the front of his dino chest, there was these unpainted areas that made his feet and made other areas. And because they didn't have the budget for the paint on it, it works well and it blends in, at least in color, with the alt mode. It kind of sticks out here with this version, with the dino mode, but it is what it is. But let's be real. Are we going to even, display this in the dino mode? This is going to be displayed in robot mode, so it isn't too much of a big deal. What is cool too is they actually painted in his dino feet with his nails there. We know where those dino feet become later on in the robot mode, so that's going to add to the extra element of how great this is going to look. But I think it looks amazing in alt mode. Otherwise, it's a big step up, even with those small little differences here and there. There's one other thing I'm going to point out when we get into the robot mode. We'll revisit the dino mode again, but let's get into that robot mode, because my goodness, I have never seen so much paint added to a figure since, the Telemocha series with Tigatron or something. It's absolutely nuts, or Cheetor. It's absolutely nuts how much paint was added to this Voyager class figure compared to its retail counterpart. And we'll start with first the robot mode head. And that was probably the one where there's the least amount of change. There still is paint added to it. They added fine little paint detail to the little vents on the side of his head that were absent with the retail release. But otherwise, just like with the Kingdom version, I think even Hasbro wanted to make sure that they got that head perfect from the beginning. That was the big selling point. And it looks great. It's so fantastic how much paint they put into it. And even then made it better than the retail version. When you get to the torso, my goodness, the amount of paint that they put into the chest, all of those stripe patterns that were completely absent from the retail version with Kingdom are all there, matching the animation model, matching the right coloring for the rib cage kind of pattern and the spinal pattern that is used. It just looks great. Even when you look at his arms that were completely absent of paint in the retail Kingdom version, they managed to put a little bit of paint to match, again, that tiger stripe kind of pattern that was going on with the dino mode and everything. It looks really good. When you go to his hands, because the dino feet had the painted in nails, now it has the painted in nails here with his robot mode hands. So it's just looking so great just from the upper torso. And speaking of his hands, what are in those hands? Well, it's his weapons. And they made sure that the weapons are also painted accurately. We originally, with that retail version, had a purple sword with an unpainted kind of hilt and everything. This one has the silver hilt. It has the more purple to silver, which is more animation accurate. So they really made sure that the sword is colored correctly to really match the animation model perfectly and not have to worry about that unpainted plastics that, again, the limitations of budget for a retail Voyager back then with Kingdom. His rotor blade weapon, again, is painted in on the inside, so that extra detail is there, which was to be expected, and it is there, and it looks incredible. Absolutely amazing. Amazing. When we get to the lower torso, the crotch is painted correctly. That's really good. His legs themselves, all the detail is there. It is absolutely nuts how much is missing from the retail version that they filled in here, from his toes, his heels, his legs themselves, again with that rib cage pattern that existed on his legs that were all painted in there. His knees are now the proper colors. His thighs are the proper colors. I have one complaint though. The ball joint of his hips in this Beast Wars Again version, they're black. In the Kingdom version, they were gold. In the animation model, they were gold. I think the reason why they went with black with those hips for the Beast Wars Again version is when we get back to the Dino mode here, if you compare the two, in the Dino mode, it was gold for the Kingdom one, and it really stuck out. With it being black in the Beast Wars Again version, it kind of blends in a little bit. If that was the case, I would have went more with a darker brown, but it's probably also what was on the sprue for the factory. I would have went with a gold just to hammer it home. The way I see it is if you're someone who already owns this Dinobot, the Kingdom version, and you buy this one, you could swap out the hips and have your perfect masterpiece-esque Dinobot. Looking incredible. Absolutely nuts. I am awestruck by how much paint they put on this. Again, I have not seen this much paint put onto a pre-existing retail product since like Telemocha did that with Cheetor and Tigatron. It is nuts, and I am so impressed. This guy is also supposed to come with a golden disc. We don't have an image of it here. We had it from the blurry image, but he's going to come with a golden disc that came with that Pterosaur 2-pack. Probably going to have some nice paint on that too in details. We will see. So that's a little extra bonus that Dinobot is going to come with also here that isn't documented with this image. Now let's get into Tarantulas, which is unfortunately a little underwhelming. I always felt that Legacy Tarantulas, which is where this mold comes from, was already perfect to begin with. I couldn't think of anything that could be done to make it more perfect outside of maybe painting in that weapon, which again, a lot of times weapons don't get painted in. They're just a single mono plastic color, a black or a brown, and then they just don't bother with it because it's also a friction point thing because it gets held, so they don't want to put too much paint on something that could just scratch off. But, and especially when it's POM plastic sometimes. In this case, I mean, I'm looking at this Beast Wars Again version. I'm looking at the retail one through Legacy. There's one difference between it. Maybe there's more in shades of colors, but it's hard to tell because of these images. I think we're going to need to get even more high-res images than the ones we have here in different poses to really see what is the difference. The one thing I could point out is his Spider Mode's eyes in the Beast Wars Again version are blue, where the Legacy one were green. Here's the thing. The animation model, he had green eyes. So once again, I think the Legacy version is the better one here. And this Beast Wars Again version, until I see better images, might be the shorter end of the stick. You know, they didn't paint in the weapon, which again, like I said, POM plastic, so it might be a headache. But I think that, you know, maybe I'm missing something. Mention it in the comments. It's hard to tell because, again, two different kinds of images, two different kinds of lighting. I have to see some side-by-sides that are better. But at the end of the day, I think maybe just Dinobot got all the paint budget. But really, what it really is at the end of the day is the Legacy version that came out was already pretty spectacular to begin with. I think that's also an example of the fact that Dinobot came from that John Warden era that was coming to its end of Hasbro, where this is the Evan and Mark era with Legacy, which has an extra fan love and focus and budget, and it's pretty crazy what they've been doing under their steed and all the craziness. So I think that, you know, that's another thing too, is when you look at Tarantulas, you see the two different eras of the Beast Wars characters, where he wasn't a Kingdom release, he was a Legacy release. But I still think, what an amazing 2-pack. If anything, just get it for the Dinobot. And wow, it is really good. So it's going to be Dinobot, it's going to be Tarantulas, probably going to come with that golden disc, like I said. And this is going to be the BWVS-06 Ferocious Battle 2-pack. It is going to be shipping out July 31st, 2024, next year. The pre-order date on this is August 9th, 2023, Japan time, which probably means August 8th, USA time, which would be a Tuesday this week coming up, a Transformer Tuesday. So chances are this is going to be up for pre-order on Hasbro Pulse on Transformer Tuesday as some new pre-orders. And if that's the case, let's talk about price. So they have here, it's 9,900 yen, which with today's exchange is about $69.40, which when we've looked at the previous Voyager Deluxe putouts from this line, we had the Rhinox with the Scorponok, we had the Tigatron with the Black Arachnia, and those on Hasbro Pulse were $64.99 and $69.99. So this one here at $69.40, again, chances are it's going to be in that same bubble. I'm predicting on Hasbro Pulse with the extra little bonus that's going to probably have with the Golden Disc, probably $69.99. That's what I'm predicting. It might be a little more. They might find an excuse to charge more with the Golden Disc, but that's what I'm probably aiming for. And for $69.99, man, you can't go wrong, in my opinion. This is like a mini masterpiece. This is everything we wanted and more. And Dinobot is such a top-tier character in the Transformer world that's just super fantastic news. Very excited about this. And who does that leave us now? So BWVS-07, who is it going to be? Well, I talked about Inferno. I feel that that's going to round it out for sure. And the fans felt that Inferno was going to be paired with Airazor, and I tend to agree with them there. They're actually quite correct. So probably BWVS-07 will be Inferno versus Airazor. And man, that Airazor toy needs paint. That is going to be absolutely insane how much paint they're going to have to put on that Airazor to really fix it up. But they will, and it's probably going to be the best Airazor figure you'll ever get outside of a masterpiece. So that's going to be pretty exciting. So BWVS-07 Inferno versus Airazor, another Voyager with a deluxe class. It'll probably be pretty awesome. And then that'll probably round out the line. That'll be the end of the Season 1 characters, and then we'll have to wait for when we get some Transmetals and Fuser designs that have been updated. And then we'll be able to, maybe in a couple years from now, revisit this Beast Wars Again line with some brand new characters and brand new paint schemes. I love that we're back to an era where we have retail versions that have to deal within the budget constraints of price points and everything like that. And then we have Japanese versions that go crazy with it and put as much paint as possible to make the best possible product, like we had with Henkei, like we had with the Transformers Legends line with Sakamoto-san, taking that from the classics, Universe 2.0, Generations, and that whole Prime War Unicron stuff and everything. So, man, I'm very excited about this. This is really cool. I this is going to be pre-order right away. I love it. Absolutely love it. Let me know what you think, guys. Again, it's definitely going to be Inferno and Airazor that's going to be next. And tomorrow, we have the Transformers Slag podcast Saturday night live stream main event. We're going to be updating all the news that we talked about this week, a whole bunch of new stuff. Still got to talk about that Transformers Missing Link line. There's even more stuff that's starting to trickle out now. So probably by the time we reach Transformer Tuesday next week, we're going to have everything all out there. But I'll be sure to see you tomorrow, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live stream here on the podcast. And we'll take some questions from the fans, update the news and everything like that. Talk to you again. Enjoy your weekend. And thank you for listening to the Transformers Slag podcast.